The CCTV shadow late night footage, 2022. This CCTV footage was recorded late at night in 2022. The area should have been completely empty. No one was expected anywhere near the property. The camera captures nothing for several seconds, just still darkness and an empty gate. Then something appears near the right side of the frame, a dark shape, fast, gone almost before the mind registers it was there. Watch that gate on the right side. The shadow slips into view and vanishes almost instantly. Some viewers immediately pointed toward technical explanations. Insects close to the lens can create strange visual distortions in night vision footage. Digital compression artifacts in security systems can produce shapes that look deliberate when they aren't. These are valid possibilities and worth holding onto. But others found those explanations unsatisfying. The movement has a quality that's different from lens interference. It appears to have direction. It moves with purpose and then disappears, not by drifting or fading, but by simply ceasing to be visible between one frame and the next. In paranormal communities, dark human-shaped figures that appear and vanish at the edge of sight have been reported across multiple cultures for centuries. Whether this footage captures anything in that category is genuinely unknown. What no one disputes is the timing. The area was supposed to be silent. Nothing was supposed to be there. The Indonesian apartment figures in the dark. A woman traveled a long distance to check on a new apartment she had recently acquired. When she arrived late at night, the entire building was without power. The apartment was completely dark, completely silent, completely still. Most people would have turned back. She went inside anyway.
يا بنات لا تناموا بطونكم فاضية، أنا صحيت جوعانة وأحس بطني راح يلصق بظهري من الجوع.
As her camera moves through the darkness, the kitchen comes into view. Around the table, several figures are standing. What appears to be a woman and a group of children. Motionless, positioned around the table in a way that doesn't feel random. Then, almost simultaneously, they turn toward her. Their eyes reflect the light of her camera in a way that looks wrong, fixed directly on her from across the room. The moment is sudden enough that her reaction is immediate and uncontrolled. She screams and runs. The footage raises a question that stays long after the clip ends. No one was supposed to be living there. The apartment was new. If someone had been inside, the camera light should have startled them into movement before they all turned at once. But the figures don't startle. They turn together at the same moment, as if they already knew she was coming. Whether this was an elaborate setup, a group of people hiding in the dark, or something else entirely, no explanation has ever been confirmed. Kyle's basement, the pounding with no footprints. Kyle had already been dealing with strange activity in his home for some time before this morning. The earlier incidents had been subtle, sounds that could be attributed to the house settling, the feeling of something small moving in spaces below. But on this particular morning, what he heard was different in quality and scale.
Footsteps all freaking night. Who's knocking on my basement door? Okay, let's go back upstairs.
The pounding against the basement door is loud and unmistakable. Not a knock, not a creak. Heavy, sustained, deliberate. Kyle calls out. The sound continues. He approaches. The moment he reaches for the handle, it stops. He opens the door. Nobody is there. The rational explanation he reaches for first is that someone heard him coming and left quickly. But outside, fresh snow covers the ground in every direction around the house. If a person, child, or adult had been standing at that basement door and fled when they heard Kyle approaching, there would be tracks leading away. There are none. The snow is undisturbed. That's the detail that changes the nature of the footage. A prank requires an exit. A person requires footprints. Whatever was pounding on that door left neither. For viewers who have followed Kyle's footage over time, this incident marked a shift. The activity that had previously felt playful or exploratory now felt aggressive. The escalation had a quality that many described as something becoming less cautious about being known. Tammy's driveway, the crawling figure. Late one night, Tammy was returning home. She pulled into her driveway, stepped out of her car, and something across the road stopped her immediately. She couldn't identify what she was looking at, only that it felt wrong in a way she couldn't explain. Her CCTV camera was already recording. A glowing light appears across the street, low to the ground. At first, it could be anything: a phone, a torch, a cyclist's light. But then the light is visibly attached to something. A dark figure moving on all fours, slowly, deliberately. Then it rises, stands upright for a moment, as if scanning the street, takes several steps along the pavement, and then its shape does something that stops the footage cold. It briefly distorts. Not the way a person's silhouette shifts when they move, but a different kind of distortion, as if the shape itself is unstable. Then it drops back to all fours and moves out of frame. Tammy later described having no reference point for what she witnessed. It didn't move like a person. It didn't behave like any animal she could identify. And the combination of the crawling, the rising, the distortion of shape, and the deliberate movement across the pavement left her shaken in a way that the footage alone conveys without any narration needed. K. Marie's sleepover, the figure, the voice, and the reflection. K. Marie was in grade school when this footage was recorded. She and her cousin were alone during what should have been an ordinary night, recording themselves on a phone. Years have passed since then, and she says the memory has never fully left her.
Hello from the other side. Walking really funny. At least I got that on camera.
Watch the right side of the frame as the girls are filming. A pale, translucent shape passes through barely there, gone almost before the eye confirms it. K. Marie reacts immediately, aware she saw something but unable to name it. Then, just after she calls out, something moves above her head. Fast, weightless, not drifting like dust or smoke. It shoots across the upper part of the frame with a directional quality that has no obvious source. That would be enough on its own, but the footage continues.
Come here.
A faint voice can be heard in the recording, barely audible. 2 words, "Come here." Marie says she didn't hear it in the moment. She was unaware of the sound as it happened. But within seconds, she repeats those exact words herself. "Come on, come here," as if responding to something she hadn't consciously processed. The mirror of the phrase across those few seconds is the detail that stays with most viewers. It isn't the shape or the movement that unsettles most, it's the voice, and the fact that she echoed it without knowing why.
Okay? Okay, start over. Hello from the other side. Walking really funny. That one ready? Go. Hold on, go over there and then go like. Dude, what the heck, man? Who are you? Hello? What was that? Did you guys see that? It's at least I got that on camera.
Then Marie films near the television. On the surface of the screen, a reflection appears, something moving in the room behind her. Marie is seated. Her cousin is in another room. The reflection shows movement where there should be none. Marie later noted that the TV screen didn't reflect the flash of her phone camera the way it should have. The light from the room behind her appears on screen, but the moving shape doesn't behave the way a reflection of a present person would. She has shared the footage for years, hoping for an explanation. One has not come. Jack's backyard, the face at the clothesline. Jack lives alone in a small house in Mexico. For weeks before installing a camera, he had been hearing noises from his backyard at night, sounds persistent enough to pull him outside repeatedly, but never leaving any visible trace when he investigated. He set up a camera facing the backyard and waited. Just above the clothesline, a shape forms in the darkness. Not a shadow cast by something out of frame, not movement behind an object. A shape appearing in open space between the line and the night sky. And it has features, not abstract or ambiguous, something that looks like a face, staring directly at the lens. Jack switches on the outdoor light. The face disappears. He turns the light off. It comes back. He repeated this several times. The same result each time. When the light is on, nothing is there. When the darkness returns, so does the shape. Whatever was outside Jack's house appeared to exist specifically in the absence of light, not running from it the way an animal would, but simply ceasing to be visible whenever illumination reached it, and reappearing when the darkness was restored. Nate the cup, the walls, and the claw mark. Nate's footage spans a longer arc than most. People in the comments of his videos had been telling him for some time that paying attention to the activity might be making it worse, that every reaction, every acknowledgement, every moment of fear might be feeding whatever was present. So Nate tried a different approach. He stopped reacting, stopped speaking to it, tried to treat the activity as if it weren't happening. What makes that decision significant is the context behind it. This wasn't the first week of strange occurrences. Nate had been documenting activity in his home across multiple videos over an extended period. Viewers had watched it build small things at first, the kind of incidents that could be rationalized, and then progressively less explainable events that pushed past the boundary of comfortable dismissal. By the time he decided to try ignoring it, he had already accumulated more footage than most people would ever want to have. The theory behind ignoring paranormal activity is rooted in certain spiritual traditions that describe entities feeding on emotional responses: fear, attention, acknowledgement. Remove the response, the theory goes, and you remove what sustains the presence. It sounds logical in principle. In practice, as Nate discovered, it depends entirely on whether the activity cooperates. It didn't.
All right. So you people tell me to ignore things, so... Tell me what the that is. I have... things going on in here and in the bathroom right above me, or some upstairs above me at the same time. But, you know, I'll just ignore it. And it's not as simple as people think. Unless people experience these things, then it's not as easy as just ignoring it when the shit happens to you.
The cabinet had been completely shut before he started recording. He hadn't touched it. He hadn't opened it. The cup falls out on its own. And in the background of the recording, something else faint whispers, unclear but present, audible under the ambient sound of the room. Listen carefully to the background of that clip. The whispers don't resolve into clear words. They exist just beneath the threshold of comprehension, the way a voice sounds when heard through a wall. Present enough to register, unclear enough to deny. That combination, audible but unverifiable, is one of the most consistent features across documented paranormal audio. Close enough to hear, too indistinct to confirm. What Nate describes afterward captures something real about the difficulty of the situation. Ignoring something you can hear and see and feel responding to you isn't a strategy that translates easily from a comment section to a lived experience. There is a difference between reading about paranormal activity and standing in a room where a cabinet just opened by itself while a voice you can't identify whispers in the background. The gap between those two experiences is where most theoretical approaches to dealing with hauntings fall apart completely.
All right. Good morning, ghosts. Happy Friday to you guys, too. I don't really see anything.
At the cemetery where Nate works, the activity follows him. Slamming sounds against the walls of the garage, not settling noises, not distant echoes from the street. Heavy impacts, rhythmic, from something that appears to be deliberately making itself heard. The chains nearby are visibly swaying between impacts. The rhythm is what distinguishes this from ambient noise. Random sounds created by structural movement or environmental factors don't follow a pattern. What the footage captures has a quality of intention behind it, the same impact repeated at intervals, pausing, then returning, as if something is waiting for a response, and resuming when none comes. Some viewers believe the cemetery location is relevant, that environments defined by grief and loss carry a different kind of energy. Cemeteries accumulate the weight of what has happened in them, across generations. The emotions present at burial sites, grief, anger, love, unfinished things, leave a kind of residue, according to this framework, that can sustain presences long after the physical cause has passed. Others point to a different explanation, that whatever has attached itself to Nate isn't connected to any location at all, but to him specifically, that it goes where he goes. That the cemetery isn't the source, Nate is the anchor. And that distinction matters because if the activity follows a person rather than residing in a place, there is no leaving it behind. There is no moving to a new house or changing jobs that resolves it. It travels with you.
Well, now, the knocking on the walls has started once again. Just figure I'd turn the camera on and see if I can catch it, because I mean it was every wall. Like, and it's inside because when it did it on this wall, this and the chains were slightly swaying. So that tells me
on the floor of the space where Nate works, a single mark, deep, claw-like, with an impression that looks like elongated fingers dragged across the surface. Not a scuff from a boot. Not a scratch from furniture. A single print, alone, with no others near it, as if something appeared, marked the surface, and left. The singularity of it is disturbing in a way that multiple marks wouldn't be. A series of scratches could suggest an animal that entered and moved through the space. One mark, isolated, in the middle of an otherwise undisturbed surface, suggests something different, something that appeared at a specific point, acted once, and was gone. The intentionality implied by a single deliberate mark is harder to explain through natural causes than chaotic scratching would be. Nate has no explanation for what left it. No one who has reviewed the footage has offered one that fully accounts for the shape. The elongated finger proportions don't match any tool mark or animal print that investigators have been able to identify. It sits in the footage as an open question that has remained unanswered. Whatever is following Nate, whether it originates in his home, in the cemetery, or in something attached to him that has no fixed location, it has demonstrated across multiple recordings that it will escalate when ignored. The cup fell from a shut cabinet. The walls slammed in a rhythm. A mark appeared on a floor that had been undisturbed, and at every stage, the activity communicated the same thing without words. It is still there, and it wants that acknowledged. Celsa Ann, the drawer that opened. Celsa Ann had been trying to document what was happening inside her home for 2 weeks before this footage was recorded. Objects moving, sounds without sources. No one believed her. On the day she finally captured it, she was home alone with her dog. 2 weeks is a long time to carry something you can't prove. To watch something happen and have no one accept your account of it. The experience of being dismissed when something genuinely frightening is occurring in your own home has its own particular weight. The fear of what's happening layered underneath the frustration of not being believed, with no way to close the gap between what you've witnessed and what anyone else will accept as real. Celsa had tried before. She described what she was experiencing to people around her. She'd been told she was imagining it. She'd been told to look for rational explanations. She'd been dismissed in the specific way that people dismiss things they haven't seen for themselves and can't accept without evidence. And so, she started filming. Every day for 2 weeks, looking for the moment the camera would finally catch what her eyes already had.
2 weeks now. I have been seeing things move. Everybody thinks I'm nuts. I know what I saw. There's nobody here. My doggy. Okay. Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god! Okay. Oh my god, I told you. Okay.
She walks through the rooms filming, narrating to whoever doubted her, and then the drawer opens. No one near it, no visible force acting on it. It simply moves, slowly, on its own. She backs away, still recording. Then it moves again. Watch the footage carefully. The drawer doesn't slam. It doesn't fly open in a dramatic way that could be attributed to a sudden structural shift or a vibration in the floor. It opens slowly, the way a hand would open it, deliberate, measured, as if something is demonstrating rather than reacting. There is a controlled quality to the movement that makes it more unsettling than a sudden violent event would be. Sudden events suggest force. Slow, deliberate movement suggests intention. Her dog is present throughout the recording. The dog's behavior is worth noting. Animals are often cited in paranormal accounts as early indicators of invisible presences responding to things that human senses don't register. Watch how the dog moves through the space during the recording. Whether you read that behavior as significant or incidental, it adds a layer to the footage that a dog owner will recognize immediately. The simplest moments are often the hardest to explain away. There is no figure in this footage, no voice, no shadow, no reflection. Just a drawer in a kitchen opening when nothing is touching it. And Celsa Ann, who had been dismissed for 2 weeks, saying, "I told you." That phrase carries more weight than it might seem to on the surface. It isn't triumphant. It isn't angry. It's the sound of someone who has been carrying something alone for too long, finally having the one thing they needed, evidence that what they experienced was real. Whether the footage convinces you or not, that moment of relief in her voice is undeniable. And for Celsa, whatever was moving things in her house didn't stop after this recording. The footage she captured that day was the beginning of documentation, not the end of the activity. She had finally proven to the people around her that something was happening. What that something was, and what it wanted, remained as unanswered after the camera caught it as it had been for the 2 weeks before. Jennifer's 1907 house, the dollhouse camera. Jennifer moved into a house built in 1907, filled with antique objects, some dating back several years before its construction. Not long after moving in, she began noticing things she couldn't account for. Footsteps in empty rooms, whispered sounds with no source, objects displaced in ways that felt purposeful rather than accidental. The activity wasn't dramatic at first. It was the kind of thing that's easy to dismiss in the daylight, a sound you tell yourself was the house settling, an object you convince yourself you misplaced yourself, but the pattern kept repeating. The footsteps came from areas of the house where no one was standing. The whispers had a quality that felt directed rather than ambient, and the displaced objects weren't random. They were things that had been deliberately placed in specific spots, things that had meaning. She contacted several mediums independently. Without prompting, each one said the same thing. They sensed children inside the house. That detail is worth sitting with for a moment. These were separate people, contacted at different times, with no shared information about the property. None of them were told what the others had said. And every one of them described the same presence. Not a general energy, not a vague sense of history, children. Specifically, consistently. Then her Ring camera captured something during the night. Large orbs move inside a small dollhouse positioned in the room. Then the camera mounted on the dollhouse itself shifts position, as if it has been physically moved by something that isn't on the recording. The orb movement alone draws debate. Skeptics point to dust particles caught in low light, insects near the lens, or digital artifacts produced by the camera's night vision mode. These are legitimate explanations worth considering, but the camera shift is harder to account for through those same mechanisms. Dust doesn't reposition a mounted camera. An insect near the lens doesn't move the lens itself. Something physical had to make contact with the camera to change its angle. Whatever that something was, it isn't visible in the footage. At the very start of the recording, before the orbs appear, some viewers say they can hear a sound in the background, not a child's voice, something lower, what sounds like a man, quietly coughing. Jennifer later revealed that the family who had previously lived in the house had died tragically. That detail reframes everything that came before it. Multiple mediums sensing children, a sound in the recording that suggests an adult presence alongside them, a camera moved by something the recording doesn't show. The cough is the detail that changes the atmosphere of the footage most completely. If the mediums were right about the children, and the recording captured the voice of someone older alongside them, then what Jennifer's house may contain isn't a single lingering presence, but something closer to a family unit, people who died together and haven't separated since. The children the mediums sensed weren't alone. Something was there with them. Some viewers believe more than one presence remains in that house, that Jennifer's home isn't haunted by one thing, but by a family that never fully left. Others think the house itself holds energy absorbed across more than a century of occupation, that a building old enough and filled with objects old enough becomes something more than architecture, a container for everything that happened inside its walls. What no one has been able to explain is the cough, or why 4 separate mediums, each contacted independently, all describe the same thing waiting inside those walls.